We are getting 5 extremely easy best ball picks that are really just no-brainers at their current ADP. They're kind of just sweat-free picks that are just free squares for you. Let's go ahead and touch on those. And so number 5 for me is actually just going to be any veteran quarterback. Seriously, guys, they are going extremely late and in some cases barely getting drafted at all. And now this is typically the case, especially at this time of best ball drafts, where people just aren't excited to draft these veteran quarterbacks. But like, look at the veteran quarterbacks that are going late. One, we can start with Justin Herbert right now, who's currently going as QB 16. I know the situation is not as good as people would want, but like, even based off of last year, and I know this is not a good example of what he did last year because it is going to be a completely different offense. But just looking at last year, guys, like the matchups that you had been worried about last year, he maybe didn't exactly produce in those matchups. The Jets, the Chiefs, you look at Baltimore, New England, and then Denver obviously got injured in that game. But the fact that he's going so late, that is essentially like your free square. Like, that's kind of just a no-brainer, sweat-free pick because chances are he's going to return multiple top 10 finishes for you guys at the quarterback position. And it's just kind of an easy pick at that pick. But that's not even like the starting point. I would say Kirk Cousins, guys. Kirk Cousins, when he ended his season last year, was arguably, if not was the best quarterback currently playing. Now, that's because the quarterback play was kind of poor last year, but he was playing extremely well. And now I know he doesn't have the best tight end in the league, arguably the best tight end in the league. Don't get me wrong with TJ Hawkinson, but a lot of people like Kyle Pitts. I think he's kind of been more of closer to a bust than a lot of people. I shouldn't say bust, okay? Just hasn't lived up to the fantasy football hype. That being said, he is a good tight end in the league. It's definitely a good pass-catching tight end. Drake London, a lot of people like. He's got Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs in the league. And so this is still going to be a good situation for him. And I think because of the Michael Penix pick, people might panic a little bit more, and his ADP might drop a little bit more as well. And I get he doesn't have that rushing upside as well, but that's an easy pick. Matthew Stafford's an easy pick, guys. Assuming he's going to be healthy, he might not play all games, all those 16 games. That's the biggest worry. But we are going to get enough starts out of him, especially at this ADP. Like, we go ahead and look at Matthew Stafford's QB log. Now, it wasn't elite, really, in any week. I guess the second half of the season, a little bit elite there, 7th, 8th, 5th for his quarterback finish that week in top 10. But really nothing that really hurts you. And so if you can get a good, safe quarterback right here, that's huge. And what happened later on in the season? Cooper Kupp returned. What's also going to happen later on in the regular season this year, Tyler Higbee is going to return as his tight end number 1, who's currently banged up. And so this offense is looking like it's going to be better going into the season this year than it was last year because Cooper Kupp was a little bit banged up. Kyron Williams was not as established as well. And then for that point as well, you got Aaron Rodgers. Okay, Aaron Rodgers, if you look at it, like, he is definitely going egregiously underdrafted in comparison to his fellow New York Jet players. Because you got Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson both going arguably in the first round. And you got Mike Williams still going decently high as well. So, like, if those two players both produce at those rates, pay off that ADP, that would also mean that Aaron Rodgers is a big reason as to why that is occurring. And then real quickly, just 2 more. I want to point out that Justin Fields, though, is going ahead of the starter in Russell Wilson. That, to me, just really sums this up for you guys. Like, the veteran quarterbacks are going vastly too late. The fact that we're getting Russell Wilson almost undrafted in some situations with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is arguably going to be an upgrade for him. I mean, really, it should be an upgrade for him thus far this season. That to me is huge. And it's crazy to me that, one, Justin Fields is going before him. I mean, what's going on? People love Justin Fields for whatever reason, even though the NFL has told us, and even though the film has shown us, that he's probably not a QB1 in this league. Maybe a quality backup. Russell Wilson still probably has 2 more good years left in him. And this is just the freest square that we can get in the draft. I mean, after that, like, he is the last projected starter that we can pick that we can almost rely on to give us multiple starts thus far this season. After that, it's like Gardner Minshew, Penix. Like, we got some question marks in there. He's like the one easy pick. Like, at the end of your drafts, if he's available in the last round, please pick him, guys. That's just a free square right now. But the other one I wanted to call out as well was Deshaun Watson. Now, people might cringe when they see that and hear that. But, like, in terms of games that Deshaun Watson started and finished, he was pretty good. I mean, QB 14 against Baltimore, a tougher matchup. Against Arizona, top 10 quarterback. Against Tennessee, top 10 quarterback. And top 10 quarterback against Cincinnati. Obviously got banged up in this game against the Colts. The Steelers, not a terrible game as well. QB 27, I mean, that's not great, but still threw for a touchdown. Still had 235 passing yards as well. And he was rushing the football. And so in summary, I've had a tough time paying up at quarterback position when we can just load up on 3 veteran quarterbacks that are going to be the starters and that are going to give us a lot of safety, but still some upside. Like, that is a much easier thing to do invest in the positional players first. Now, I do think that one of Deshaun Watson's teammates is also going extremely late. Now, I thought this last year as well. That's going to be receiver Amari Cooper. So, guys, Amari Cooper is currently going as receiver number 31 on Underdog Best Ball Drafts, which you would say, sure, that could be maybe correct. But when we look at this in comparison to the other receivers that are around his ADP, that's where it really starts to stand out. So let's just talk about some of the receivers that are going before him. Marvin Harrison Jr., a rookie receiver. You got all the Houston Texans receivers basically going before him. All the Chicago Bears receivers, including their rookie receiver, going before him. Malik Neighbors currently going before him. That to me is just crazy, and it's a little bit mind-numbing. Like, we are getting a receiver number 1 in a decent offense. I don't think it's going to be a world beater, but he is the last of the receiver number 1s that we feel comfortable that could actually pay off a potential receiver number 1 in fantasy football as well. He could be a top 12 receiver in fantasy football, and that would not shock anyone. Now, last year, he was one of the players that I was hyping up to you guys as well, Amari Cooper. He finished as receiver number 16 last year. Okay, nothing sexy, but still very solid production out of him. The year before that did slightly better, played the full season, top 10 receiver. And so we are essentially locking in at least a borderline receiver number 1 at the latest ADP that you can have possible for that type of player. And I love pairing Amari Cooper up late with Deshaun Watson late. Like, that to me is just a very easy, kind of sweat-free, risk-free type of stack that you guys can do. That should be a good asset for you guys in your best ball drafts. So arguably one of my favorite things to do in best ball drafts right now, it's just loading up on Green Bay Packers. On paper, they're arguably the best offense for fantasy football production, and they're not being treated that way. If anything, you could argue they're going to be top 5. I'm a Packers fan. There might be a little biased. We saw last year my bias towards Jordan Love really paid off for you guys. So I don't really think there is any bias going on there. I think it's just correct. Can you have correct bias? I don't know. Anyways, Wicks looked like he could be a true receiver number 1 in this league. And I know the Green Bay Packers are loaded with talent, but it would not shock anyone for Wicks to end up being the top receiver in that offense. Now let's just talk through it. Jaden Reed is going to be the easiest Green Bay Packers pick receiver-wise because his role really does seem defined. He feels just the safest. His role is not going to change. His production should be similar to what it was last year. Maybe gets a little bit better as well. Like that, we can seem to lock in. That feels very safe. Christian Watson still has the biggest upside out of any Green Bay Packers receiver. If he finishes as a receiver number 1 in fantasy football, that would not be shocking. At the same time, he would have to stay healthy. He does have the talent. He has been the receiver number 1 for the Green Bay Packers when he's on the field. He has been the top scorer for them when he's been on the field, and he really does make the offense move. So that would not be shocking as well. I get why Reed's going first and then Christian Watson. That makes a ton of sense. Don't get me wrong. That makes a lot of sense. You want to be loading up on Green Bay Packers at their current ADPs. I just want to echo that. That should be your strategy. And now Romeo Doubs is the one where I don't exactly know what to do with him, because he is going to have his good weeks and he's going to have his bad weeks. He's going to feel very much touchdown dependent. My question is, with them being pretty loaded offensively, like you got Luke Musgrave there who looked good, especially later on the season. You got Tucker Kraft who really looked good. Those are 2 good tight ends. You have one workhorse running back in Josh Jacobs. Are we just going to see a lot of 4 receiver sets? That's my biggest question. But I could see Dobbs potentially get a little bit phased out of the offense actually because, well, Wicks really looked like he could be a receiver number 1. He actually... And I don't want to say he was Devontae Adams, but he looked, in terms of like a player that could become Devontae Adams on the Green Bay Packers, it was Wicks. And so we get back into Wicks. It's not like you really have to risk that much to get him, okay? He is currently going as receiver number 67, okay? He will finish better than that, assuming he stays healthy. And he's around other flyers that I don't mind, like Quentin Johnston. I feel like he's a good flyer. Michael Wilson, decent flyer. We have another one that I'll get into a second here that's right around there as well. Shaheed's decent. Khalil Shakir, I think, is a great flyer as well. But again, I think we want to be loading up on that offense, and I think that's a route that we want to go. And for what it's worth, guys, Khalil Shakir, honorable mention for this list. Quentin Johnston, honorable mention for this list as well. But let's go ahead and get into number 2. That's actually going to be a teammate of Wicks, and that is going to be running back Josh Jacobs. So when we go through this list, right now I'm in a best ball draft. CMC has been drafted and CeeDee Lamb have been drafted. Okay, so we can see Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, we got Bijan Robinson, we got Breece Hall. We got to scroll down a decent amount to get to Josh Jacobs. Now, why do I think that's significant? Well, Josh Jacobs, I think, is going to be one of the bigger ADP risers throughout the offseason. Like, he is going to be the true workhorse running back for the Green Bay Packers. A lot of people are wondering why the Packers moved on from Aaron Jones. It's because you couldn't trust Aaron Jones. You really couldn't. He was electric as a player, but part of the reason as to why he's electric is because you couldn't trust him. health-wise, staying on his feet-wise. Look at the last play of their season on offense. He falls down on what would have been an easy pitch, I should say pass and catch for 20 yards to put them into field goal position against the Niners. That was Aaron Jones. That's why they had to move on from him. And plus, you can get a workhorse running back that's also younger. That's arguably better for you in Josh Jacobs. So I love that pick. It would not be shocking to see Josh Jacobs be the running back number 1 at the end of the season. Again, I think this Packers offense is going to be pretty elite. I'm kind of betting on that right now. But even if you say I'm crazy with that, you'll still see that Josh Jacobs is going late. Like, you could argue Derrick Henry's going a little bit late as well, but we know Josh Jacobs is at least going to get passing down work. Like, here's A.J. Dillon's game log last year. A.J. Dillon was not very good, and he was still finishing around a top 30 running back. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people are going to be worried about Josh Jacobs last year and his production last year. He still looked the part on film, guys. Like, there just wasn't a lot there for him. He was a player that I was trying to get in season-long leagues after the first few games because I knew he was going to break out. And he did kind of have tougher matchups to start the season. And then as the season progressed, as he got easier matchups, he was able to take advantage of those. But then again, going back to where he's being drafted as running back 9 and pick 30, he is someone that I think as the season progresses or as the offseason progresses could end up being a borderline first-round pick because people might sour on a lot of the receivers that are being drafted that high. Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake London, Garrett Wilson's up there as well. Devon Achane, I could see people maybe getting a little bit worried about. Kyron Williams, maybe the Blake Corum hype gets a little bit exaggerated. Malik Neighbors, Malik Neighbors should not be going ahead of him. And so, especially in spots where running back is pretty crucial, Josh Jacobs just makes a ton of sense there. Like, there's no reason why he shouldn't be going after Devon Achane. All right, so the one easiest pick for me right now is going to be Demario Douglas. And I know some people are hearing that and be like, but the Patriots drafted a rookie quarterback and 2 rookie receivers that are arguably 2 very solid fits for the New England Patriots. And I get that. Demario Douglas, though, looked good. I don't think Demario Douglas's role is going to change all that much. Now, maybe Javon Baker gets a little bit more slot work as well. Maybe those 2 operate in the slot a lot. They still have Kendrick Bourne there as well, and they got Polk there as well. Demario Douglas could potentially be phased out. Until we see that happen, like maybe during camp and whatnot, or until the hype starts to get built up too much on both Baker and Polk, I'm going to assume that Douglas is still going to be the top pass catcher in that offense. Now, I don't want you guys to think like Demario Douglas is going to be some sort of league winner, but he's someone that you pick because he's not going to lose you weeks. He's a good kind of spot in type filler, especially in PPR leagues, half-point PPR as well. I really don't mind him. He's going to have safe, reliable production, and that is what I like to see. You are getting a guy that's going to be drafted way later than he's going to produce on the average week. And so, again, not going to be a world beater, and he's going to have a new quarterback in there. But in a lot of games, guys, he saw 7 targets in week 1, and then we saw a good stretch in there where we saw 6, 7, 7, 9, 9, 5, 8. Like, the targets were there for him. I see those targets still being there for him. Maybe the production, maybe the offense actually gets a little bit better as well. Now, maybe you guys are saying, yeah, it just lacks the upside. I don't want to pick him there. I get that, but at the same time, he's a safe kind of late round pick that you guys can use when, let's say, you're going through the draft and realize you just haven't drafted that many receivers. He is a safe, reliable option at that late of an ADP. He's a play that just naturally fits in a lot of spots. But that is going to be all for this video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. I do want to be putting out more and more fantasy football content for you guys this offseason. So make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. Do appreciate that. Hit that notification bell. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck on your best ball drafts. And as always, let's keep cashing.